Hey guys, how are ya? This is Phil from PhilsExoticKitchen. Today we're recreating strawberry Pop-Tarts. Claire Saffitz from the Bon Appetit Test Kitchen. We are coming for you. We're using your recipe, your techniques. Let's go!
Well, right off the bat we have one egg white here with a pinch of kosher salt. Just going to whisk that together really well. Adding some powdered sugar here. Again, going to whisk that until we get a nice thick glaze-like consistency. Pouring that into 4 different bowls, adding some red food coloring, some yellow food coloring here, some green food color, and now we're going to finish up with a little red and yellow to make an orange color for our Pop-Tart sprinkles. Now we're going to take each of these colors, spread them out very thinly on a silpat here. These colors are going to dry on the silpat for about 12 hours or overnight. You need them super dry so that in the next step, as you'll see here in a second, you're able to peel the sprinkles off and chop them up much easier. If they're wet at all, this won't work. I had some trouble with that and had to let this sit a little bit longer than initially anticipated. So once those are all dry, you'll put them onto your chopping surface and chop those up nice and finely. This takes just a couple minutes. Definitely not a crazy task once you've let the sprinkles dry completely. You'll notice here that there is some fine powder that I'm sifting out. We just want the big sprinkles for the most part, and those are pretty easy to use. Just a fine mesh sieve here and carry on. So I've added the strawberries here with about 1/3 cup of sugar, another pinch of kosher salt, and a couple tablespoons of water. Those are just sliced in half. Obviously stems are removed. Gonna start stirring that 5 to 8 minutes here until the strawberries tenderize. Make sure that the pot's not too hot. Pour that into a heat-proof bowl. We're gonna blend this up here just using a stick blender, boat motor, others will call it. And get a nice fine consistency, mashing all that flesh. Once that's done, it goes back into our pot, back onto the stove for, in my case, it took about 15 minutes. Want this to thicken up really nicely. I'm going to start and skim off some of the foam here. Let's make for a nice clean filling. This is super simple. Just need to watch it and make sure it doesn't burn. Scraping down the sides with that heat-proof spatula is very important. You'll see that consistency there, exactly where we want it. Continuing until you can pretty much move it away and it will pull away from the bottom of the bowl. Here I'm spreading out the mixture onto another silpat. This is going to go into a 200-degree oven, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. We really want to dehydrate this down to a nice thick paste. As Claire said, it's like a tomato paste. That gets stirred every 10 to 15 minutes, give or take. Just pulls out of the oven, stir everything up, make sure that you're not sticking too bad. Then back into the oven. I actually had to stir this 3 times before it was ready. While that's going, I actually took some fresh lemon zest here, just zesting with a microplane, about half of a lemon worth of zest. I'm gonna take, there's our finished product, by the way. It's like a tomato paste, very sticky. Add that to our lemon zest, add a little bit of fresh lemon juice and some vanilla extract. Always taste that. It tasted really good for me. Here we are with some flour for the crust. That flour has sugar and salt in there. Now we're adding about 2.5 sticks of cold butter. This butter is very cold, so it's very important. We're just going to blend this a few times in our food processor to get a nice cornmeal consistency. Now I missed that shot, but this section here has some water added already. I'm adding a touch more water just to get this into a nice texture. The dough was very wet here. I added a touch too much water. That was not ideal. I was able to salvage it with a little bit of flour. Not working this dough too much here, just making sure that we could get it together forming a nice brick that's going to go into the refrigerator, wrapping this up super tight with some plastic wrap here. Again, I did make that dough a little wet, but as you can see, it came out pretty nicely here. So that's sit in the fridge for about 4 hours. I take this whole brick of dough out right now and split it in half. One half stays out now to work, and the other half goes back into the fridge just to stay nice and cold while we roll out this first section. So this dough, again, wasn't ideal. I don't have a ton of pastry experience, but came out pretty nice. Got that onto another Silpat and started measuring out about 3 1/4 by 4 1/2 inch squares or rectangles. These are the bottoms of the Pop-Tarts. This was the second piece that I rolled out of dough, just using a fork to dock some holes in there so that steam can escape and these Pop-Tarts don't blow up into tents as they cook. There's our strawberry filling, spooning that and smoothing that out onto each of the individual Pop-Tarts. You can see I ran out, so I did use some raspberry filling on there as well, which came out really nicely. So just separating a few of these, letting them have space on another Silpat, taking some egg wash here, hitting the sides, try to be careful. It doesn't look pretty at this point. Just trust me that these did come out absolutely delicious. Just being careful now to make sure that all of the edges are pressed down properly. Now I'm actually using a chopstick here. Just Claire suggested a wooden dowel. This is the best I had. This really helped to square up the Pop-Tarts and make good seals, just using my bench scraper again to cut the excess and make some nice clean lines. This helped tremendously keeping the Pop-Tarts square. Those Pop-Tarts go into the fridge for about 20 minutes to cool, and then they go into a 300-degree oven for about 35 minutes to bake. This is the finished product here that came out of the oven and onto a cooling rack. Once those are completely cooled, I took a little sandwich bag here with that icing. This is a thick batch of royal icing. It's just an egg white, some powdered sugar, and a pinch of salt. I made this thick to be a nice border on these cooled Pop-Tarts. The inner filling, I added just a touch of water and lemon juice to make it smoother and filled in the Pop-Tarts much easier. There's that thinner filling. I'll use a toothpick here to smooth some of that out, and then we take our homemade sprinkles and let it rain over that Pop-Tart, and that's starting to look like the real thing. At this point, we just continued on filling these Pop-Tarts, dusting with sprinkling, and letting them cool and dry completely. This was such a fun project. It's time to eat. Let's taste them.
All right, guys, been waiting almost 2 days for this. Here's our finished product. My fiance Paige joining in for the taste test. This is gonna be good. Let's get in here. Let's break this one open.
So excited.
Let's look at that. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. There you are.
Thank you.
Sweet, buttery, perfect crust here. I know it didn't look super pretty. Making it came out fantastic. That strawberry jam on the inside.
I love it. I love the icing too. It's like perfect amount of icing.
Well, guys, thanks for coming along. It's been quite the adventure. Hope it was worth the wait. Definitely worth the wait here. Got to check these out. Thanks again to Claire and the Bon Appetit Test Kitchen for the recipe. We will see you soon.
Cheers.